Hey guys, my name is Radek. I'm your TA for Economics 1 BO3, and if you don't know that by now, you have been watching the videos. So this is chapter 11, and it doesn't have any math. Yay! So, we'll go over some of the concepts in this chapter, and it's not really going to be anything much different from what the book has, but I might say it in a way that might make more sense, and I'm going to try to add some of my own things and some of the things that I found off the internet. So firstly, excludability. Some goods, like apples, are subject to consumption rivalry. If I eat the apple, it is no longer available to anybody else. But other goods are not subject to consumption rivalry. Many people can tune into the same radio station signal at once without degrading them. A good or service is said to be excludable when it is possible to prevent people who have not paid for it from having access to it, and non-excludable when it is possible to do so. So, what is rivalry, or a rivalrous good? Rivalry is a characteristic of a good that can be placed along a continuum ranging from rivalrous to non-rivalrous. The same characteristic is sometimes referred to as subtractive or non-subtractive. A rival, subtractable good, is a good whose consumption by one consumer prevents simultaneous consumption by another consumer. For instance, roads or internet. Road use is non-rival up to a certain capacity, after which congestion means that each additional user decreases speed for others. For that, recent economic theory views rivalry as a continuum, not a binary category. So binary means 1 or 0, so either it is or it isn't. So when we are talking about rivalry, it is not just a binary good. So where many goods are somewhere between the two extremes of completely rival and non-completely rival or completely non-rival. Most goods, both durable and non-durable, are rival goods. A hammer is a durable rival good. One person's use of the hammer prevents a significant barrier to others who desire to use that hammer at the same time. So, two people can't use the hammer at the same time. Duh. Therefore, it is a durable rival good. However, the first user does not use up the hammer, meaning that some rival goods can still be shared through time. An apple is a non-durable rival good. Once an apple is eaten up, it is used up and can no longer be eaten by others. Non-tangible goods can also be rivalrous. Examples include the ownership of radio spectra and domain names. In more general terms, almost all private goods are rivalrous. So, if we've talked about rivalrous goods, we have to talk about non-rivalrous goods. Man, that's a mouthful. In contrast, non-rival goods may be consumed by one consumer without preventing simultaneous consumption by others. Most examples of non-rival goods are intangible. Broadcast television is an example of a non-rival good. When a consumer turns on a TV set, this does not prevent the TV in other consumers' houses from working. The television itself is a rival good. If I'm using my TV, you're not using my TV. But television broadcasts are non-rival goods. Other examples of non-rival goods include beautiful scenic views, national defense, clean air, street signs, and public safety, like the police. Man, my contacts suck today. Alright, goods differ in whether they are excludable or rival. They can either be excludable, rival, or combinations. They can be grouped into 4 categories: excludable and rivalrous, excludable and non-rivalrous, rivalrous and non-excludable, and rivalrous or non-excludable and non-rivalrous. So let's go through a few of these. Let's have some examples. So a good that is excludable and rivalrous is like the apple. It's food, it's clothing, and it's congested toll roads. So all private goods. Excludable and non-rivalrous are like cinemas, television stations, theme parks. So things that are natural monopolies. Non-excludable and rivalrous, it's like timber, gold, silver, coal. So all common resources. Water's another one, air. Non-excludable and non-rivalrous. Oh wait, this one's air, national defense, or OHIP. So all public goods. So what is a private good? What's a public good? What's a common good? So let's go with a private good. A private good is defined in economics as a good that exhibits certain properties. These properties are excludable and rivalrous. So let's go through excludable again really quickly. The owner's possession of the good can exercise private property rights, preventing a class of consumers from using the good or consuming its benefits. Rivalrous means consumption by one consumer prevents simultaneous consumption by another consumer. Private goods satisfy an individual want, while public goods satisfy a collective want of society. A private good is the opposite of a public good, as they are almost exclusively made for profit. So what is a public good? A public good is a good that is non-rival and non-excludable. Non-rival means that consumption of the good by one individual does not reduce availability of the good for others' consumption, and non-excludability, that no one can be effectively excluded from using the good. In the real world, there may be no such thing as an absolutely non-rivaled and non-excludable good, but economists think that some goods approximate the concept closely enough for analysis to be economically useful. So, what are common goods? Common goods are defined as goods which are rivalrous and non-excludable. Thus, they constitute one of the four main types of most common typology of goods based on certain criteria. These criteria are whether the consumption of a good by one person precludes its consumption by another person, its rivalrousness. And second, whether it is possible to exclude a person from consumption of the good, like excludability. So that's common goods. So what about the tragedy of the commons, right? This is the tragedy of common goods, right? A problem with people using common goods. It is a dilemma arising from the situation in which multiple individuals, acting independently and rationally, consulting their own self-interest, will ultimately deplete a shared, limited resource, even when it is clear that it is not in anyone's long-term interest for this to happen. So, the tragedy of commons include the overfishing and destruction of the Grand Banks, the destruction of salmon runs on rivers that have been dammed, most prominently in modern times like the Columbia River in the northwest United States, and historically in the North Atlantic rivers. The devastation of the sturgeon fishery in modern Russia, but historically in the United States as well. And in terms of water supply, the limited available in arid regions, like Los Angeles water system, Mexico, the Middle East, and so forth. Other situations exemplifying tragedy of the commons include pollution caused by driving cars. There are many negative externalities we covered in the last chapter, of driving. These include congestion, carbon emissions, and traffic accidents. So that's the tragedy of the commons, and basically what it's saying, the one example that we're going to talk about is a couple of farmers and their sheep. There was a common grazing ground, and both these farmers let all their sheep out. And all the sheep were eating. All of a sudden there was no grass left. So this is where private property kind of came in, where plots of land were given to farmers. So if the farmers decided that they wanted so many sheep that they would eat all the grass, right, and exhaust their resource, that would be that farmer's problem, and the other farmer could ration his land. So that was where the development of the private property system kind of arose from. So now we have only one last sort of topic, and that's the free rider problem. Free rider is somebody who consumes a resource without paying for it, or pays less than full cost. The free rider problem is a question of how to limit free riding. Free riding is usually considered to be an economic problem only when it leads to non-production or underproduction of a public good. So it's Pareto inefficient. Or when it leads to excessive use of a common property or resource. A free rider in economics is someone who consumes more than what society allocates to them. This is not to be confused with what they contribute to society, but consuming more than they are entitled to. Take, for example, a room of 20 people. If everyone in the room is vaccinated to prevent, like the bird flu, but one person refuses to get vaccinated, this one person will benefit from everyone else's vaccination by not being exposed to the virus, but they are not entitled to this protection because they have not paid for this immunization. So in economics, this loner is considered a free rider. They create a potentially dangerous situation. When the vaccination has worn off, this free rider who has refused to become vaccinated will reintroduce this virus, bringing back the infection. This is why malaria is very difficult to combat in some parts of the world like Africa. Not because the person chooses to be a free rider, but because they do not have access to the right to treatment at the right time. So to be a free rider, it can be by choice or by necessity. So this was a fairly quick chapter, few key concepts. If anyone's having any problems with it, please contact your TAs. I'm not sure if the next chapter, chapter 12, is actually covered in the class. That's the chapter involving the tax structure. So I may skip it for now, so if you don't see chapter 12, don't be too worried that it's not there. And I'll move right on to chapter 13, and I think that starts dealing with production. And we're going to be looking at marginal costs, and then slowly it'll lead into monopolies, oligopolies, and duopolies. So my name's Radek. I'm your TA for Economics 1B03. And this was chapter 11. See you in chapter 12.